Hello, Hyper Games Conference. I'm Jake, I'm Senior Publishing Manager here at Kwalee, and today I'm going to talk to you about how you can make a great game in 2 days. So this has come from a lot of discussions I've had with our head of development, who has participated in a lot of game jams. I've always been kind of interested in the way that the mentality of hyper-casual and the market of hyper-casual drives this mentality of essentially a game jam mentality. I'll kind of touch on it in a bit more detail, but the purpose of this talk is to help you to understand how you can create a stronger pipeline of games in the early stages that you are able to test and have the best potential in those tests. So whatever publisher you are working with, they're always going to want to test marketability as early as possible because it has such a huge impact on the performance of your game overall. Before I jump into it, I'll give you a quick introduction to Kwalee if you don't know who we are. So we are the UK's biggest hyper-casual games publisher. We have over 700 million downloads with our latest release, Traffic Cop 3D, recently hitting #1 in the US on both the games chart and the all apps chart, which is quite exciting. We're headquartered in Leamington Spa, offices in Bangalore, Beijing, and remote team members worldwide. So team members in Turkey, team members in Thailand, team members in Portugal, team members worldwide, all integrated as part of the company and the core team, working closely with the team members we have in these offices. Over 170 team members, and we're still hiring, still growing as a company. A lot of open roles at the moment. So check out the website, and I believe some of them are in the job section of Hyper Games Conference as well. So check that out. Shout out to the Hyper Games Conference guys for setting that up. So what are we looking for? As a publisher, especially in the early stages, we're looking for innovation in gameplay, innovation in presentation, and attention-grabbing moments. These are all things that have a profound impact on the CPI or CTR of your game. So I'll start with the innovation in gameplay. You want to present your game as something that is different to what your player has already played. You want to present it as something that feels different, offers something really fun, a fun world to kind of slip into and lose a few minutes to consistently. You want to make your gameplay feel great and retain your players as well as possible. And the best way to do that is to innovate, provide something familiar but a new spin on it, something that helps your game to stand out. Likewise, innovation in presentation will help your game to stand out quite significantly. So it's one thing to take a game that already exists, a gameplay that already exists, for example, and skin it in a completely different way. That innovates the presentation, but doesn't necessarily innovate on the gameplay. You want to combine both of those things to create something that feels new, that is fresh, and has stronger potential with your marketing tests, because ultimately there's a strong risk that if you don't innovate, somebody is going to see your ad and think, oh, I've played that before, I know what that is. So it's really crucial to innovate, especially in this space, and the idea of this kind of game jam mentality really leans into that. The other thing we're looking for is attention-grabbing moments in the gameplay. You want to make sure that when you are producing your games, when you're developing your games, you think about what attention-grabbing moments you could show in ads that will firstly grab a potential player's attention, get them to look at your ad, and then you get a chance to show off your innovative gameplay, your innovative presentation that then pulls them into the game, excites them about the game, and makes them want to play it. So, game jam attitude. I've been talking about this a little bit so far already, but really it feels like hyper-casual is constant game jams. There's an intense competition across all of the market. You're in a market where you could produce an idea and then the next week see 3 other people are producing the same idea, and there's this race to scale it, there's this race to release that game. But you can let that fuel your determination and your ideation. You can use innovation as a tool with like-minded people that are excited by this competitive market and this potential to thrive with a huge hit game. So when hyper-casual games succeed, there's huge potential there for monetization and scale, as we've seen. So use innovation as a tool to create new content, new games that feel different to your audience and your players. Speak up. I think one thing that is always worth considering with the hyper-casual market is speak up. Present the thoughts that you believe are best. Present them to a publisher, present them to other developers. Start a dialogue about what could be an exciting game. You're not necessarily just making games that you would like, you're making games for a mass market. So there's huge amounts of potential and huge opportunities to create something new and innovative. And that's kind of how the hyper-casual market always takes you by surprise. You think, okay, I know what's coming next, I know what's happening, and there's always something that is so innovative and so new that you couldn't have seen it coming. It's one thing to lean into trends and one thing to focus on what we see as like the next big thing, but don't let that misguide you from being creative. Don't let that kind of like pull you away from looking at your creative ideas, testing out your creative ideas. If you're able to limit the time you spend on those creative ideas, limit the time that you spend going from idea to testable, potentially marketable idea that can be shown to users. You can run an ad for this. Limit the time there so that you focus the rest of the time on the stuff that's working or on another exciting idea, innovative idea that could make all the difference. So it might seem crazy to think that you could make a hit in 48 hours, but these three and more games from Kwalee are great examples of hits where the original prototype for these that was tested was made in 48 hours. These all came from our Creative Wednesdays process and were pitched by somebody within the team, then went on to be produced, released, tested, and then launched and scaled. Obviously, after the point of testing, there's work to be done to improve the gameplay, but you can get to a point of testing where you have something that looks this great and plays this well, or looks like it plays this well, in 2 days. It's a challenge, but you can build your pipeline and focus your work to make that happen. So one way of doing that is getting your priorities right. Focus in the early stages on interactivity and trying to innovate. So your game needs to be satisfying and tactile. You need to create these satisfying moments in the gameplay. The moment-to-moment gameplay should be as satisfying as possible, and it should feel very tactile to play. Like part of the satisfaction of a hyper-casual game is the controls feel smooth, they feel fluid. And that kind of tactileness even extends to this sense of physicality within the game where you hit a ball and it expands into multiple other balls. Getting these feelings of satisfaction and this interactivity right is essential. By the end of day one of your development, aim to have an entire game in a playable state. You want to prioritize getting something in your hands that you can get a feel for. You can understand how it feels to play on a device and then make tweaks and improvements from there. Cut the right corners. So in the early stages, you could end up moving on from this prototype that you build, this CPI test or a CTR test. So focus on code that's working instead of code that's clean. For VFX and polish, there's no need to worry about it in the first instance. Focus on VFX and polish later. You want to polish up to a point where what you're showing is somewhat representative of the final game, but that can always improve further down the line when you want to invest more time in something that you know has market potential. Make the game feel good. This is essential. This shows in the ads whether your game feels good. Like the gameplay makes such a huge difference to how a game performs in the ad. It's crazy. So does your game have a tightly packed core gameplay loop? Is the game's design simple but intuitive? Is the game easy to fall into? So is it easy to fall into another session of this game? Is it easy to start playing this game and then kind of get carried away, like get stuck into playing and playing and playing this satisfying, tightly packed core loop? Get feedback. This is something that I cannot stress enough. Get feedback from other developers, get feedback from publishers, get feedback from your friends and family. A really useful source of feedback. One piece of advice I'll often give is get your mum or somebody that you know doesn't play games to play your prototype or to look at a video of your prototype. If they don't understand what's going on, if they can't see that and go, oh yeah, I see what's going on there, you've got to do this, then the objective of your game isn't necessarily clear, or it's going to be harder to market that to a wide audience. You want to make sure that from a few seconds of watching your ad and watching your video of your gameplay, it's easy to understand what your game is, what the objective is, and what you're doing. First time making a hyper-casual game? This is advice that I would always give to first-timers. Play the heck out of hyper-casual games released in the last 3 years. Go back through time, use different tools out there that allow you to look at like charting games throughout the last 3 years. Play as many as you can, play the biggest hits. Start to understand, start to dissect the games that resonate with you. If there's a game there that you find kind of fun, you find really fun, or has scaled really effectively, start to understand what makes that fun and pull out these key components that, there are a lot of consistent points that all hyper-casual games kind of hit. So start to pull that stuff out, pull out the things that resonate with you, dissect what makes that fun, how that was achieved, and then use that in your work, use that in your prototype, in your design, to make your games as fun as possible, to make your games as appealing as possible. And at this stage, at the early stage of testing, remember that fun is way more important than balance. You don't need a big significant difficulty curve. You don't necessarily need to balance out the game so that it feels like there is a strong challenge there. You want to make sure that the game is fun. You want to make sure that the game feels great and is fun to play and is rewarding for the player. And that needs to shine through, that sense of fun, that sense of satisfaction needs to shine through in your ads. If you're new to development, remember that publishers are experts with very open minds. There are really no stupid ideas in hyper-casual. There are a lot of games that that you might come up with an idea for and then think of dismissing because you think, that's a crazy idea. But talk to an expert, talk to a publisher about that idea, see if you can get their thoughts on it. Because really, there are no stupid ideas when it comes to hyper-casual. There's always the thing that I often find when working closely with developers and talking to designers is, even if an idea doesn't necessarily feel like it is something that has a lot of potential for hyper-casual, there's often a part of it that you start to lean into, and then you find that you've designed a completely different game, but without that original idea, that second game, that new game that feels like it's really worth going for, never existed. So there are no stupid ideas. Definitely raise your voice. Make sure that you're talking to publishers about your ideas. Also, it's worth keeping in mind that games of all kinds can fit within hyper-casual. So there's runner games, puzzle games, and even runner games span genres. Any kind of game, because there is such a broad audience, there's so much potential for games of all kinds to work, and you see games of all kinds scaling and climbing the charts. So you see games where it's this kind of narrative-driven game about making the right choice in conversation or in these moments of someone's life to then become the most popular. Or you have this light sense of challenge where you're lining up a scanner on a number plate and then chasing and making decisions to arrest or chase a car. So keep in mind that games of all kinds fit within hyper-casual. And if you're new, it's okay to feel anxious. It feels quite daunting to think, I should make a game within 2 days. That's such a short period of time. But I think try and see it as a challenge. And these are questions that when I've spoken to people about game jams and about this kind of hyper-casual mentality, people have asked, should I submit my game if it's missing features? What if it's not good enough? My games keep missing the KPIs. What do I do? Like, these are all very valid questions. Definitely submit your game even if it's missing features. Like, publishing teams and publishers are always going to have an open mind. Plus, you're too close to quit over a particular feature that's going to take you 3 more days or another week to get right, when you have something there that you can play and you can get a feel for, even if that means that after those 2 days, there's a little bit of tweaking and guidance needed. Most of the time, though, you might be ready to test. You'd also be surprised with the results that you can get this early on. Also, keep in mind that every game you make within a short period of time, you're going to learn from. You're going to get feedback on this very precise point. Like, you can focus on getting one element of your game feeling right in order to prototype it and test it. And then learn from the feedback that you get on that. Learn from the KPIs that you get on that. What if your game isn't good enough? So again, games of all kinds fit within hyper-casual. So the thing that really determines whether a game is good enough in hyper-casual is the data. The audience has a broad taste in genre, style, and aesthetics. Again, no stupid ideas. And again, you're going to learn from this experience. So don't be afraid to fail. Multiple failures. So I've tested loads of games with no success. That's good. That's kind of a good thing. You're learning from these failures. You're learning from games that haven't tested well, and learning from the results that you get, what is working and what isn't working in this market. Also, take on board advice from publishers. They're looking at so many games and so many successes and failures that it's worth keeping in mind that this advice is driving your game production in the right way. Work with a publisher who not only gives you feedback on the one game that's failed and what it is about that specific game that hasn't passed the KPIs, but also gives you advice for moving forward. These are the things that you could be focusing on to improve on what you've learned here. And then you start to build up this knowledge and this understanding of the hyper-casual market. Focus on salvaging what's fun and compelling from your failed games. It could be useful later. Like, you can use a lot of kind of elements of something that you've already made to improve something else further on, and that helps you get to the point of testing faster. Fail fast and use that data to make your next game better. And with each test that doesn't make it, get feedback from the publishing team to help you. Thank you, and good luck. So if you want to enter some questions in the chat, I should be able to join live shortly and answer them. It's always a pleasure to take part in these, so you should see me live momentarily.
So hi Jake, thank you for absolutely awesome speech. It was so much interesting. We have some questions in here. I would appreciate if you could answer them.
Of course.
Yeah. So some of them are questions, some of them are comments. So I'm gonna read them. First of them, innovation can sound daunting as a designer, but it's very often a case of making small tweaks rather than reinventing the wheel, from something as small as new camera perspective or a different gameplay goal. Do you agree with that?
I do. This is a comment from Tom, who also works at Kwalee as a publishing executive, and he's got a really solid knowledge of hyper-casual design and kind of ideation and innovation. He's right, that innovation can be quite daunting for developers in the first instance and designers in the first instance. Like, the word innovation makes it feel like you kind of have to create something completely new, entirely new, that nobody's ever seen anything like before. But really, in hyper-casual, you can find something that's already kind of established that helps it to be an accessible idea, and find a new spin on it. Like, find a theme that resonates with a big audience. This idea of like growth, we've seen a lot of multiplication, like ball games. This idea of growth resonating with a huge audience, and then finding new ways to present that idea and make it a toy that people can play with.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Questions. Can you show us an example of how a game made in 2 days looks like for its first test?
Yes, I can. I can't do it right now. We ran a webinar not too long ago with Graham Ford, who developed the prototype for Let's Be Cops. And that original prototype, I believe, was made in about a day. In that webinar, we kind of showed the original video that tested really well in the initial test, and we were able to then move forward and work with them, Graham and the team, to scale it up, and compared it to the videos that we tested further down the line. And it was, I mean, the best way of describing it is like it's quite a low level of polish, but the gameplay shines through. It's really clear what the gameplay is, how that stands out from what already exists.
I see. So is there any video guys can watch?
There is. Let me make sure I've got it noted down. I'll have a chat with our team to make sure that we can put that out.
Okay.
But that was a question from Yannick. I was kind of watching the chat before. So Yannick, I can reach out to you directly and we can have a chat if you like.
Yes, of course. Yannick, please reach directly. Okay, the next one. How to know the game has fun and what action should we take to improve it? Sometimes frustration is also act as like Helix Jump.
Play the game. That's my best advice for understanding, like identifying whether it's fun. Play the game, get other people to play the game, test with them, like real players, test with friends and family, see if they get frustrated with it. I think there are games, and a lot of the examples where frustration is fun are from a few years ago. That's not to say that there's no space for it now, but I think things have moved quite significantly to like quite almost easygoing, like easy to play and easy to kind of win and feel good games. So I think you can still build a feel good moment into something where like you're frustrated, you fail a little bit, but it's a short loop where you fail quickly, you're back in the game. I think the challenge with frustration is there's a lot of frustration when you invest quite a bit of time, so like a minute or so, and then fail and then you reset, it feels like you've done nothing. So keeping that idea of kind of progression in there helps with a sense of fun, a sense of frustration being kind of limited. Ultimately, you don't want the game to be just frustrating. You want it to be fun and frustrating if that's what you're going for with your game.
I see. Thank you. The next question, isn't it limiting the innovation to push studios to make games within 2 days? It doesn't give a lot of space to experiment with interesting technologies and to propose something actually new.
So that's a really interesting question. I think there's two sides of this, right? I don't think it's worth like everything you ever do being made in 2 days. You're going to have ideas that require more than 2 days to develop the first prototype of. And a lot of those are they're these ideas that fit that feeling of innovation that you get when you're first presented with it, right? This idea of like, oh, this is something completely new. This is really innovative. It's not like a spin on something. It's completely new. So those ideas are definitely worth exploring. The nature of hyper casual, it's such a fast market. There's so many prototypes being tested. It's worth getting through as many ideas as you can in those short kind of prototyping cycles. It helps you to kind of the ideas that don't require that much effort and that much input. It helps you to kind of get through those and understand which ones are performing well. Where should I invest most of my time? And for these big ideas, you can see like what's the minimum prototype I could make for this tech that feels like it's going to take weeks to develop.
Thank you. Next question: how do you balance speed versus sparking competition to beat you to the idea?
Say again.
How do you balance speed versus sparking competition to beat you to the idea?
So you want to get your idea out there and tested as quickly as possible, so that you can understand whether there's something that's worth iterating on. There's something that justifies you pushing forward with improving different KPIs and how engaging the game is, or if it's worth moving to the next concept. And obviously, the nature of the market is that everybody's trying to do this, right? There are publishers, there are developers that are all trying to find the next hit and building prototypes. There are so many great prototypes that don't end up scaling up the charts. And I feel kind of like we're in a beneficial position to see all these great games. I think the thing to focus on is getting your game testable as early as possible so that you can assess it and understand whether it's worth your time making more builds or whether you want to come up with a new idea and try and work on that as the next step. Hopefully that answers the question clearly.
Looks like. Okay, one more comment. Thanks, Jake. It was great presentation. Would you what do you think is the most relevant today between model and improve, mix and twist? And is it possible to find a replay of the webinar you talk about? Yes, all the video recordings will be available on the YouTube channel of the conference. If you would like to know that, and also please share your presentation on Kwalee LinkedIn page.
Of course, I'll talk to the guys that run the page and get that set up.
Great.
What was there was an original there was a question in there at the start. I'm not sure I got it.
Which one?
The start of that that section. Hang on, let me see if I can open up Pine.
It looks like we took all of them.
Yeah. What do you think is the most relevant today between model and improve / mix and twist?
Yes. This one.
I'm not sure what's meant by models and improve / mix and twist. I think if I'm reading this correctly, and like mix and twist is taking ideas from other games, kind of mixing them up together, like essentially cooking up something new from elements of different games. That's always going to be really important. There's always going to be. I'd recommend to anyone, especially people that want to develop hyper casual games and publish hyper casual games, play as many hyper casual games as you can. Play successful hyper casual games, even like play games that are released that don't necessarily scale, and games that are flagged by things like Store Glide, etc. Because you start to get this understanding of like the feel of hyper casual games, what you like, what is most engaging, and you start to see like these common areas in games that scale well, and you can learn from that. You can learn from this kind of level of polish and this level of accessibility and fun that you can kind of pull into your own prototypes, your own designs, and it starts to get you in this mindset of like, all right, how do I make this as fun as possible for as many people? So I do think there's still something in like improving and mixing up game types that already exist, but obviously there's always that risk of it's too close to the original, or like you want to make sure there's something that sets you apart from what's already out there, so that when people see it, they see it as something new and something different.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That's it. We have no time left. Everybody who would like to speak to Jake more, please welcome back to direct messages or to LinkedIn page and get in contact. So, Jake, I appreciate your speech and answers. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Have a great day.